And now, Detailing Success and PNS Double Black present the Renny Doyle Podcast, a podcast for blue-collar entrepreneurs. Hosted by the detailer of Air Force One and founder of both Detailing Success and the Detail Mafia, Renny Doyle. And now, here's Renny.
What's up, man? How y'all doing? Dan,
Hey, Renny.
Good to see you, bud.
Likewise. Been a while.
Been a while. So it's hey guys, welcome to the podcast. And we've got today is kind of a we're gonna revisit the foundation of our industries. We used to call it boards, chat rooms, and then forums. And today's guest, Dan Ekenberg, Dan Ekenberg set up. I mean, basically, the professional platform was the very first platform I believe that professionals really utilized. And so I wanted to bring Dan in. He's a good friend. I wanted to bring him in for a conversation and kind of share, what this man built. And then actually just about our friendship and some things that we've discussed. We just had one. Dan and I don't get on the phone and not have a deep conversation. And it's good. So welcome, Dan.
Thank you very much. I've been looking forward to it. We've talked about doing this for a while, so I'm really anxious to get into this and share with the group.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty fun. So a little caveat is we're known. We've got it's all over the place. Renny Doyle Detailing Success. Our website, our domain is detailingsuccess.com. And I don't know if Dan remembers this or not, but Dan came up with that domain name. Dan
I do remember. We were sitting at the coffee shop over by the mall.
And you said, "Well, what do we call this thing? And you said, "Well, it's how about detailing success, because you're trying to get success in detailing." And we rolled it over, and it stuck. And almost, can you believe this? I mean, 16, 17. Almost 17 years later, here we are.
Well, what's funny, Renny, is when I was trying to come up with I know we'll talk a little bit more about it, but when I was coming up with the name for my website, I'm like, what am I going to call this thing? Well, it's about mobile detailing, and I know mobile works. Mobile works. Bingo.
and I remember that. So we'll jump into the background. So little old Idaho. Here we are. I'm minding my own business. Dan, how long have you lived in Idaho?
Oh my gosh, 27 years, I think now. I've lost track.
So back when when we struck up a friendship, we didn't know each other existed, and I was so busy building a business and a family, and Dan's the same way, and there wasn't a whole lot detailing wise going on in Idaho, but there was, and a lot of people put it back to the rag company. Is popular now there, but Dan had built something, again, a foundation right out of his place, right out of his home there in Boise, Idaho. And so I jumped on. Dan, what year did you launch the forum, MobileWorks?
Officially 1997, but I was kind of messing around with it, I couldn't tell you the mouse from the keyboard when I got started with this thing. So, I mean, there was a lot of trial and error. Unfortunately, in the beginning, there was a lot more error than trial.
Right.
But officially in 1997.
1997. So there's so many common factors that, that same time frame, just 2 hours away over in Haley, Idaho, Diane and I were launching Attention to Details that same year, that same time frame. And here, Dan, you're just busy, trying to live life and pay the bills, so to say, and raise your son. And what year was your son born?
Oh boy, I don't know if he wants me saying this or not, but to 1998.
1998. So same year that, our middle daughter was born too. So all these similarities, right? And yet we didn't know each other existed. And so I was kind of a late comer. This sounds funny now. To forums, because I didn't get on there. I was just so busy building. I didn't even know they existed. And in about 2001, 2002, I was doing some research to buy a pressure washer and came across MobileWorks. So I signed up and I laid in the reeds. I I just was a observer, never made a post, kind of watch what everybody's saying, because again, my day was, get up at the crack of dawn, help Diane with the kids, take off to work, come back. And in that time frame, Diane was working at a restaurant, fine dining restaurant. So I'd come home and be dad in the evening, which was a blast. Diane would go off to work. I'd wait up for her and then repeat. And so we were just trying to build a life and a business. And I was doing some research. And then Dan, all the way in 2003, here we are in Little Idaho. I made my first post in 2003.
Isn't that crazy?
And I want to tell you, there was only, what were the other boards that were up? Yours was the primary for professionals, but there was a couple of other ones. And I know McGuire.
I know Bud Abraham, and Detail Plus was on there, and I can't remember the other ones either. I mean, forums were kind of a necessary evil because everybody knows the trolling that goes on the forums. So
yeah, it was kind of weird. And I know McGuire's Online kind of launched in the early 2000s, so we had that, but it was still, we falled back. Now let's mention some names. This is going to go back. Let's go back before we do that, and then so introduce yourself. Your mobile works, but what led you to detailing? What time frame and what led you there? Did we lose audio?
Yeah, Dan, we lost.
There he goes. Got it.
Sorry about that. It's kind of funny. I had started a residential construction cleanup business here in Boise about 1992, 1993. And it was running that. And my good friend from New Mexico had started a mobile detailing business, just basically bought the equipment, didn't have any training per se, and said, are you interested in buying it? Because I'm not sure that I can continue this. And I thought, yeah, what the heck? So I drove down to New Mexico, picked up the equipment, same thing, no training, which was one of the biggest things going at the time. There wasn't any training. So it was literally flying by the seat of your pants trying to figure out how this stuff works. So I'm sure the people that have gone through your class can appreciate the level of skills that they gain going through your class. I didn't have that opportunity. I mean, I literally was learning, and you may remember this, Renny, but I was contacted by a company to do one of their RVs. Well, I'd never done an RV in my life, and they called and said, "Can you do one?" I said, "Yeah, sure." So I drive over there, and it had the gel coat and all that stuff, which I knew nothing about. Totally screwed it up. It was this pea green motorhome, it's the ugliest thing you've ever seen. And I'm out there and I'm calling everybody I can contact. How do I fix this? I'm sending photos. I just totally screwed it up. And the guy comes out and he goes, "How's it coming?" I said, "Well, I've got an issue, but I'll be out first thing in the morning. I got to, make some phone calls." Well, it rained like crazy all night, and it was raining the next morning. And as it turns out, that was kind of the godsend, because it was raining so hard and I had so much product on this thing that he couldn't see the imperfections, and took it out to an auction that day and it got sold. So,
wow, I remember that.
And again, it's just, the whole thing about the training. I can't say enough. Gosh, kudos to everybody that's going out and getting trained so you don't have those fiascos. I mean, I almost ended up buying this ugly thing, and I'm so glad I didn't have to, but I wouldn't have had any other choice because I made the mistake.
Well, it's funny because I think back in those days, so many of us made that mistake. Now I almost hate to say it, there's not really an excuse to have that challenge with all the information that's out there between YouTube and all the social media platforms, and even if you don't go for official training, I mean it would almost be silly to make that kind of mistake. But yet back in those days, there was no options, as you mentioned. And so I remember making a couple posts, and we're going to get into history repeats itself in 2008 and now in any likeness, because I want to hear your opinion on this. I'm definitely seeing, not just not just in the detailing community, but in the world, some likeness of what's happening now, of what happened back in '08 with the economy and people's attitudes and everything else. But so Dan and I, we actually figured out, I don't even know how, do you remember how we figured? I don't even know. I mean, I contacted you for something in the early, like 2003, 2000, I don't know, 2004 maybe. And we figured out we were both in Idaho. We had no clue, no clue. And
if memory serves, the whole website was driven by advertisers, and you had contacted me asking what the rates were and how do I get on here. And then, you later became, a great sponsor of the website. So that's kind of how the conversation got started. And then, we realized, oh my gosh, you're, a couple hours away from me. And then we started having, when you moved down to Boise, we started having coffee on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a trip. So, some of the friendships of those early, and I'm going to leave. You mentioned Bud Abraham was involved, but Jim Gogan, one of my best friends, Mark Johnson, Paul Apollonia, which is still, Paul's still active.
I love Paul. He's such a genuine person.
He is. Keith DePlessis. And there's a lot of names I'm skipping over, but this original group, we decided to go to this little show called Mobile Tech, MTE. Yep. So Dan's talking to me and he goes, hey, let's go down there together. What was it, 05 or 06 that we went together? Do you remember?
I believe it was 6, but I'd have to search my memory brain.
Right.
I can't remember what I had for breakfast.
Right. So 2005, 2006, we go down to Mobile Tech, and we're there, and it's in Clearwater at that time.
Right.
Which, boy, I wish we could move it back there. I don't think they've got anything big enough. But I really do. Not laying claim that we all, started detailing, because we didn't. It was going. But I think that group of people, I think that's what really launched detailing into its modern day, communications.
Agreed. They made it a community. And if you remember, Renny, that first year we were down there, the original, Jim and Brian, I believe, were heading up the original, what's now, the Professional Detailing Association. They were trying to get that going at that expo.
Right. And I remember that we got together and we brought every detailer that we could get. I think it was the next year we went down, and we said, okay, every detailer that's here, let's meet. We did. We were able to get every single detailer that was at that show to go to a kind of a meet and greet. And there were seven or eight of us, and that was everybody. There was 100% attendance, 100% attendance, and there was less than 10. And so the shows, now there's hundreds, maybe.
Well, I haven't been to that in years and years and years, but I look at it and it's crazy how much it's grown.
Yeah, and so those friendships, are still there. And then even as people ask me how to get into training, it was your forum. It was MobileWorks. I was doing open garages for our customers, and I started doing open garages, like little how-to clinics. And I had some pros come in, but not very many. It was mainly for pro amateurs and some of our customers and stuff like that. And a young man named Matt Williams.
Yep, I remember. I did his first website for him.
Yep, Matt Williams gets a hold of me on your site, MobileWorks, and says, "Hey, would you train me?" And awesome. That launched the modern day detailing success, because when I met you, we weren't aiming that. We were just going after high-end details, and I wanted to get the word out there. We're expanding. We're kind of going into maybe franchising our brand and, licensing it. So we already had a couple of those going. But the training side of it wasn't there. It was really growing and taking it to another level within either licensing or franchising. And so all of a sudden Matt comes into it, which every once in a while, Matt and I will get together still and talk. And,
awesome.
He was fresh out of college at the time. And again, I hope that those that are listening, this might be boring to you, but history repeats itself. And I want you guys to hear this foundation with this man. So we get this community going, and it was it was rock'em sock'em robots at times. And, people think that, people think that it's rough now. I don't think you guys have a clue on what these forums, it was like the wild, wild west with gunslingers,
Oh my gosh, it was crazy. Myself as the only moderator in the beginning, it was all I had in me to try to keep up with all the craziness going on.
Yeah, and it's and back in those days, you'd seed people, you could seed them to, it was just a different world, right? And we were a lot younger and a lot crazier and everything else. So, what led you? So you're detailing, if those that know Boise, Idaho, got a winner, and what started that journey to start the detailing community, Mobile Works?
Well, back in that period of time, there wasn't a mobile detailer on every corner. It was kind of a new thing. So when I was out doing customers' vehicles, whether I was doing a detail or just washing their car, I had so many people coming up, how do you start one of these things? And I thought, okay. So I started kind of scratching my head thinking, okay, is there a bigger market for this? Long story short, I put together the initial site with the intent of selling a startup guide on how to start a detailing business. Mm-hmm. It wasn't how to detail because I didn't have that expertise. It was just, okay, how do I get licensing? What do I need for insurance? Regulations, all that stuff. Just how do you find a supplier? All that stuff to get into the business. Well, what happened is I had experienced detail shop owners buying this booklet, and it wasn't telling them what they thought they were getting. So I discontinued that and just opened it up to what it eventually became. It was just a portal for everything detailing, PDR, glass repair, headlight restoration, the whole gamut. And it just, once I made that switch, it just blew up.
I remember those days, and I remember that booklet and you sending them out. And again, there was so much trial by fire back in those days because detailing at that time really hadn't changed in the last 30 years. At this time, it had been pretty much the same and remained the same for a bit during that time frame. So, I think that where we hit it off is that so many people, listening to this, is that maybe you're single, young, you don't have a care in the world, but chapters change. And Dan and I were both dads, young dads at the time with young kids and going through the struggles. And so much of our conversation was watching people be destructive, in life, in their own life, and hurting themselves and everything else. And we'd have these deep chats then, and even now. We had one last a couple weeks ago, right. And we talked about things. But we tying all that in is our friendship. It's so important to have people that understand your struggle, that are in the same game, and that you got to be careful. Is because we mentioned earlier some of the characters that were in there. You don't, especially back then, you don't know who you're talking to. Is that you're behind a keyboard, and you've got to be careful of who fills your brains. Even today, is that we go out and there's hundreds and maybe thousands of people at SEMA or Mobile Tech, and you get to know people, but do you really get to know them? And I'm seeing history repeat itself. Overwork, a lack of life. It's all alive and well. And Dan's done a great job, of separating himself from the rat race. I think even going back, 15 years ago, Dan, is that you really wanted to take and just not be a part of the nonsense, and the loudness of life. And you had a loss, your brother passed away, and you'd always had this dream that you shared with me, and that was to go on this nationwide bike ride. So you made it happen. So kind of explain that.
Well, if you remember, I forget the year, but you had I don't know if a seminar is the right word, but you had an event out in Ontario, California that you invited me to go out and speak about work-life balance and not to become so involved with your business that you forget your life. And in my particular case, it was my child. When my son was born, I know it sounds cliche, but it literally changed my life in so many ways. Everything that I thought was important before wasn't important anymore, or at least not as important. My son is my priority, always has been my priority, and he literally laid the foundation for me to be a better person. Hopefully, I've been a better person, and we were sitting in a Denny's out in Meridian, Idaho, and he asked, this is, back in the days when smartphones really weren't smartphones at all, but he asked me if he could use my phone while we were waiting for our menu or for our breakfast. And he wanted to, do some goofy thing. So he opens up this paint program. That's what it was called at the time. And he starts doing this diddly thing and this blue smiley face, and he hands it back to me. And he goes, "There you go, Dad." And I said, "That's cool, son. What are you going to name this?" He goes, "I don't know, Banner." Like, Banner? Why Banner? And he goes, "I don't know. It just sounds cool." And it just really struck me. And when I still have that exact original image, and that's the logo that I used for my bike ride website. And the name of my website was Take Time for Life. I'm writing in memory of my brother, and my son and I had tried to plan to do that same ride earlier, several years earlier, and things happened and it didn't work out. And I just got to the point where it's now or never. I'm not getting any younger. There's never going to be the perfect time. It doesn't matter whether you're planning a bike ride, whether you're going to expand your business. It doesn't matter what it is. There's never going to be the perfect time. There's always going to be a reason why you shouldn't do it. My advice to everybody is don't find reasons not to do something. Find the reason to do something. Whether you think you can or know you can or not, you've got to take the chance, take the step. And, when I went to my employer and I said, "I want to go on this bike ride." I said, "No, let me back up. I am going on this bike ride, and I'm prepared to lose my job if necessary." And the owner and the general manager spoke, and they said, "Well, we can't pay you while you're gone, but you'll have our complete support." And they did. Wow. The general manager at the time drove me up to Oregon to start the ride and all this stuff. And when another one of my employees watched my dog Ace while I was gone, so I didn't have to put him in kennel or boarding or whatever. And my motto quickly became, as long as my wheels are moving forward, it doesn't matter how fast I'm going. And I mean, really, that's kind of a motto for my life right now. It doesn't matter how fast I'm going, as long as I'm moving in the direction that I want to go.
I love that. Yeah.
How long did a cross country trek on your bike take?
Chris, it took me 3.5 months. I still remember the miles, 3,649 miles.
Wow. So you started it on the coast in Oregon.
Florence, Oregon. Yep.
And then where did you end up?
Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina.
Wow, man, what a journey. And that leads us. So tell us, what was the inspiration for that? And I've known you a long time. And I mean, to go out, I just want to say, Dan's one of the few people I know that talked about his dreams and then has gone and made them happen. And, I think as you age, you find out what the richness is in your life, and to have the freedom that Dan's created. To some, it would be a minimalistic life, right? You live simple.
It's very minimalistic.
Very, very minimalistic. But to you, you're living your dream. And I got to tell you, man, A, I'm so proud of you to watch that happen. And B, I don't think people realize the balls and the fortitude it takes to go and do that. So you ride across the country, and I know why, and I'll let you share here in a second. But you basically said enough's enough to the bullshit of the rat race, and you've lived the life that you want to live, and
Yep.
you're pretty damn happy, if I might add. From the outside looking in.
I'm very happy. And again, it all not to keep hammering this point, but it's such a big part of me, and that's my son. And I tell people all the time, and I'm going to tell you guys too, if my son calls, I'm going to have to end the call we're having, because if I'm on a Zoom call with my employer, doesn't matter who it is, if my son calls, I drop what I'm doing and take that call.
Wow.
Yeah. For those that don't know, he's in the Air Force, and you never know what's going to go on.
Right.
So it's one of those things. I never want to have a situation where he was trying to call me to tell me something, and I was too busy to take that call, and then something happens. I don't want to ever miss that opportunity to tell my son I love him one more time.
Wow. So your bike ride, you and your brother.
I got off track there.
Right. You and your brother, you lost your brother.
Yep, 2002.
And you guys had talked about this. So share with us, you've talked about this bike ride pretty much since the day I met you, and
Right.
What year did you make the ride happen?
2017.
Yeah.
And while we're on that, I also want to give a shout out to Renny and the whole Detail Mafia, because Renny sponsored my ride, and also a number of the people within the Mafia, just people I knew in detailing, also, provided donations. I didn't know what I was doing, Renny. I had a $350 department store mountain bike, didn't do any training, didn't have any, experience in it. I just started it. And it's like, what was really amazing as I was doing this ride, I'm thinking, okay, if I can ride 10 miles to go to the office and 10 miles back or whatever, which was about the extent of my training for a week, and it's just another mile is all it is. It's just 3,649 of them tied together. And if I went on this thing thinking I can't ride 3,649 miles in 3.5 months, but I can ride 1 mile today and just keep adding to it. And before I knew it, it was all done. But my brother was just an avid outdoorsman, loved cycling, was living with his family in Colorado, and just loved everything about the outdoors, was a mountain biker, the whole thing. And I mean, I honestly felt him with me the entire way.
Wow. Again, I think that let's go back over your history. You started a mobile detailing company. We're in a tough market. Probably one of the earliest mobile detailers in Idaho that there was. You started sending books out talking about how to.
Right.
Then you launch a forum or a community, that's for detailing. Then you start standing up to this. I remember in the conversations, there's so many people, and I definitely admit this, we just fall into living a life that maybe is attractive to other people, but not us. And you'd stand up to that, and you built, a life around love for your son, love for other people. And I got to add love for yourself.
Okay.
You don't make these changes without. And again, the fortitude that it takes, the inner strength it takes to just draw those boundaries and say, I'm going to do this, is incredible.
Well, Renny, if I can interject real quick, the greatest thing about doing something that you're not even sure you can do, whether that's, again, expanding your business or starting a business or whatever, is some goofy thing like riding a bike across the country, what that opens you up to is opportunities and to meet people and do things you never even knew you had that opportunity to do before. And the people that I met on this bike ride were just incredible with their generosity and kindness across the entire country. So, I mean, all the crap going on with people saying the country's falling apart. Well, it may be going through some struggles, but it's not falling apart. There's a lot of great people out in the country. And the main thing is you just, like I said, whatever it is you want to think about doing, don't think about it too much because you're going to talk yourself out of it. Just take the step and do it.
I'll tell you, it's huge, and it leads us right into, before I even go into the great people, and we have, you and I talked about your journey. I just recently did not anything close to a bike ride across the country. I just did a 7-day, 1 week, overland trip from Washington down into Idaho, Montana, Utah, and met some incredible people. I was just in Tennessee, and my goal is every time I'm somewhere, I try to meet someone new. And when I don't know, it's incredible people. Like you said, our people are, I don't know, we are kind of effed up, right? Our government's really effed up. But we, the soul of our country is, man, we got some great people out there. So let's talk about some of the struggles. Okay, you take off on the bike ride. And I didn't know, I'll be honest, I didn't know that you had just like a off the shelf standard bike when you do that. So again, I don't know if you got any balls left after riding on a bike like that long, you might have just rubbed them off.
They're recovering a little bit now.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, so how many, so you're basically, you're a little over 3 months in, right?
Yep.
So 3 months and how long?
3.5 months.
3.5 months.
The total amount it took.
How many nights in a hotel?
Boy, I didn't count. Probably maybe a dozen.
Wow. Okay. That's impressive right there. So take us through your okay, so you're just 1 mile at a time. Those wheels are turning, right? You're just going. Yep. You're on your $400 bike, right? You got the gear that you got. What's your nights like? I mean, where do you find shelter? You had to come across some bad weather.
Tons of bad weather, but you never knew. You got to wherever. As the ride started, that's when I stayed in the majority of the hotels because I would get all these alerts on my phone saying, severe thunderstorm warnings and whatever. So, okay, I got to find a hotel, and I get a hotel. Well, the storm typically would pass in 20 minutes. Well, all I had to do was get out of the rain for 20 minutes and then get going again. So I learned that lesson fairly early. I didn't have to get a hotel just because the weather was looking bad. But when I got to some of these places, I mean, I pitched tents in, public parks and all across the country and bizarre places. But the coolest thing was there's a app called Warm Showers, and it's for cyclists and host. So you open up the app, and if I'm going through X city the next day, it'll tell me what hosts are available in that area. And I'll contact them and I'll say, okay, I want to stay whatever day and whatever time. And if they are able to, they'll say, yeah, here's the directions to our home. And then they invite you in their home thus the term Warm Showers, to sleep, in a bed, take a shower, have a meal, and people like that all the way across the country. And a lot of them weren't involved in this organization at all. It was just people with kindness all the way across the country. They'd see me on the side of the road and they said, where are you heading? We've got a house up here. We got a trailer over here, whatever. And they just invite me into their homes or buy me meals or whatever, all the way across the country. But the one thing I always share, because it's the story that really touched me more than anything the entire way, was in Kentucky. It was Labor Day weekend, and I'm trying to get to the state park to camp for the night. And it was a windy road, and everybody's on the road with their boats and their RVs, wiping me off the road. So I turned back around to the small town I left from, Ford, Kentucky, if I remember the name of it correct. And there's a gentleman sitting in his truck, and I pull up to him, and he looks around and he goes, "What the heck are you doing on that thing?" And I said, "Well, I'm riding across the country. I'm trying to get to the state park." And he looks around, across his shoulders again. And he goes, "Come on, I'll get you up there." And he puts my bike in the back, drives me up to 10, 12 miles up to the park. And we walk up in the ranger station or whatever. And he says, "Can I help you guys?" And he says, "Well, this guy's riding his bike across the country. Don't ask me why, but is there a place where he can pitch his tent?" and kind of directed me to where it was. And he goes, well, there's a $10 fee. And I was perfect. So I start taking my wallet out, and the guy that gave me the ride says, no, I got this. And so he takes me up there, pays for my tent spot. And then I go over and I get the tent set up, and it was probably 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And this other gentleman rolls up on a bike, and he's got this trailer behind it, kind of clearly down on his luck. And we were standing out there talking or whatever. And I'm like, gosh, why is this guy coming into my life right now in this way? And we stayed up until probably 2:30 in the morning talking. And he's a homeless vet from Kentucky. He'd been on this bike forever. That was his home. That was his transportation, everything. And he had stopped at a rest area not too far down the road before he got to this park. And he said, I went down there and I did some, cleaned the floors and cleaned out the kitchen, and they gave me these bags of spaghetti as payment. Would you like one? I'm like, oh my gosh. I said, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm fine though. He goes, well, I got to give you something. And I said, that's not necessary. And he goes over to his trailer and he starts unwrapping this package or some kind. And he walks towards me with a banjo. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do with a banjo? That wasn't what he had in mind though. But he leaned up against the wall, and he started playing the banjo and sang this absolutely beautiful Willie Nelson song. It was just incredible.
Wow.
And he got done. He goes, Dan, it's not much, but it's all I got. And here's these two grown men out in the middle of the state park in the middle of the night. It was just crazy. And then the next morning, that gentleman that brought me up there, I hear this rat-tat-tat on the side of my tent. And I opened up the flap to it, and it's that guy. And I said, what in the world are you doing here? He goes, I just felt so good after I met you yesterday. I wanted to come and take you to breakfast and see you off. Total strangers.
And we talked about that is on my journey, now it's kind of, when that happens, Dan, it kind of becomes part of your life and every day, doesn't it? And you kind of seek that out. And I'm going to tell you, it doesn't take much seeking to find good people. We concentrate on the negativity and the bad and this and that. But yet, when you're looking for good, you see good. Does that make sense?
I don't even know if you have to be looking for it, Renny. You just got to be willing to accept it and not look for the negative in everything you look at. And there were several occasions when I was going into areas, my first instinct is, oh my God, I'm going to die trying to get through here. Not because of the terrain, but just because of the people that I saw in the area. But I get stuck at a traffic light, and I'm trying to get through it, and this guy's approaching me. And my first thing, come on, light, change. And it didn't change. And he walked up to me, and we had a great conversation.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah.
It's crazy. And I think that applies to so much in life, that we're always seem to be looking for the negative all the time. Sometimes you don't even need to look for anything. Just accept what's there and make the best of it, whatever that may be. Whether it's, you're trying to, like I said, you're trying to expand your business, you're trying to find ways to get more business. You're talking to people all day, every day, whether you're in your business doing the work or not. There's always people out there that you can talk to and share your story with. A lot of people are inspired by people in your community that operate these small businesses. It's not an easy thing to do. And they're always willing to reach out and help those people with their business.
I'm in Los Angeles, and LA gets a pretty bad rap, right? For not being such a friendly place. But I know there's a lot of good people here. It's just the culture and the environment just, makes it a little bit harder for them to come out of their shell. But just, simple hellos and holding the doors open for people and stuff like that helps get them out of their shell, and you'd be surprised who you can meet.
No,
Isn't that the truth? I was sharing with a friend yesterday. I went on a bike ride yesterday, and I'm going down the green belt. Rennie's familiar with the green belt here in Boise. And, kind of the common practice when you're approaching a pedestrian on a pathway is to say, either ring a bell or say on your left or whatever. And what I was doing yesterday when they were walking their dogs, and Renny, being a big dog person, will appreciate this. So I'm walking up and I'm doing the on your left, and they kind of scoot over a little bit. Well, then as soon as I got next to them, I would stop and say, I just didn't want to startle your dog. Or the way I said it, I just didn't want to startle your pup. And they were like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like they've never heard that before. Then I'm having conversations with these people about their dogs.
I love
there's great people everywhere.
It's we've had to relocate our horses to a new facility because of just some things that went on. And so now they're still close to us. They're still under 3 miles away. Next year at this, in spring, they'll be home, so we're going to right to my left is going to be, they're going to be out there, and it's going to be awesome. But the guy that they're on the property of, last night I saw him and he comes up to me and he goes, let me tell you something. He says, that horse of yours is something else. And he says, I come out to check on the horses and he's got to have a conversation. He's just got to have a conversation. And I think you need to, his name's Rip. I call him Rippers. Rippers is actually his real name, Rips for short. But it's Rip tries. Is Rip doesn't know an enemy. Rip doesn't know. He just wants to love everybody, and I think so. I learned so much from him because here he is, this big 1,400-pound beast,
Right.
But he's gentle, and I don't know. I take a lot away from that.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, you know my dog. I had to put him down a little over a year ago. He was just shy of 14 years old, golden retriever, just a love bug, and it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. And I think this crazy dog taught me so much about patience.
Boy,
not only with myself, but with other people, obviously. It's because, they're non-judgmental.
Yeah.
They love everybody. And I think it wore off on me.
Well, it's funny because Boomer, a lot of people that if you know me, you know Boomer. The last, we just lost him almost 4 months ago, and I always tell people Boomer taught me to live in the moment. First time in my life, first soul that was ever successful at teaching me to live in the moment. It took him entering my life to teach me that, and I'm so thankful because even though he's gone, I pay tribute to him. I would do such dishonor to him to forget that trait just because he's not right here next to me, And so I honor him by continuing, to live in the moment. You talked about websites. So you got into websites. A lot of people don't. In 2007, with your encouragement and a lot of help, and a lot of discussion, I took on my own first website with Detailing Success. That's where you named it. It was an endeavor. It took me. I remember people will say, oh boy. It was a huge website. It was, I practiced on a couple small ones, but I remember staying up for 3 weeks. I would get done working, and then at 9 o'clock at night, I would start the website, and at 3 a.m, I would finally turn my computer off. I'd force myself because I had to get up, in 3 or 4 hours. And you built websites for a long time. Changed a lot, hasn't it?
It's changed a whole lot. Like I said, I couldn't tell you the mouse from the keyboard when I first got started, but now with all these, whether it's Squarespace or Wix or Weebly or whatever, there's so many of these drag and drop website builders out there, and a lot of them are really good. And the company that I worked for, I still do their website. I still do marketing. I really don't do new websites per se too much anymore because going back to what we were talking about earlier, I've got better things to do than pull my hair up. I don't have it to, spend going back and forth. And when what I found was a lot of people, they knew what they wanted, but they didn't know what was involved in making that happen.
Right.
So it looks easier than it is. I guess
boy, I'll tell you. Now, 2007, you mentioned that we had a summit, I think is what we called it, and it was actually
summit, that's right.
Yeah. That was the first Detail Mafia event ever.
Oh, really?
Yep, ever.
Yeah.
And Johnny Unser, the race car driver, came and spoke, remember?
I do remember.
Yep. And we had you there. We had myself, Jim Gogan. There's a lot of people that were there, in those early days. And then Johnny came in as a friend of mine from up in Haley, Idaho, and spoke to us. And that launched a whole, again, that was just something new that nobody else was doing. And so much of our careers have mirrored each other because we're not in the beginning of detailing, because detailing goes back 100 years, as long as the automobile and even the horse-drawn buggies, they were polishing them out, right? But modern day detailing, we were there in those early days. We were there, and we had to pioneer a lot of what is a lot of people think that's their everyday life. They don't know what it would be without being able to go to Facebook and seeing whatever group they belong to and getting answers. But you developed that. I mean, you were one of the earliest ones to see that need and fill that niche. And I think a lot of people, I'm glad you could come on, because I wanted to explain that and your role in it. But through that journey is watching you as a man, being able to realize that you just, is we all have an expiration date, and it's not tattooed on us. It's, you can't take a black light and see what it is. And, I think that you've been a man that realized that, and you've done a lot, but yet I'm going to say you're wise enough to back out and just do what you felt your life needed and what you wanted versus what society sees and wants of you. How hard was that?
It really isn't that difficult for me, because I kind of came up with if they don't like it, that's their problem attitude. I kind of came up with that years ago. I really don't focus too much on what anybody thinks. I try to do what's right. I try to be kind. I try to be considerate. And if that's not good, or that's not what they're looking for, then that's really not my problem. Going back to the website and getting that started, the thing that was, I taught myself how to do websites, and I had a general knowledge of detailing. I knew the terms, I knew the general procedures, but I was not an expert in it by any means. And so I reached out to people that were, i.e. yourself. And, through the kindness of people like you that were submitting articles to me to post on the website. And so what I would do is I'd say, okay, I don't know. You couldn't pay me enough to detail a plane, let alone Air Force One. So if people were asking me, okay, how do I detail a plane? Well, I don't know. I'm not going to put that information out there. So I get hold of you, and you submitted articles to me, and it's got to be a cohesive relationship. I don't expect you to take the time and effort to write an article on auto detailing or plane detailing or boat whatever it is, and not be appropriately, I don't know if compensated is the right word, but at least provide backlinks to your website. And that, as we all know, helps with the SEO and all that other stuff. And I had people from all parts of the industry in all parts of the world submitting articles, and they're sharing their expertise with myself and my audience, which is what ultimately made the entire site grow. I was smart enough to realize I don't know everything.
Wow. Yeah. Well, and but you sure to learn. You sure knew a lot, and you've helped this industry. And it's really cool. It's an honor for me. We got to get you down to Mobile Tech at some time. I'm going to drag you out of Idaho and get you down there and speak with me and talk about this exact subject, and the history of it, and Kevin Halewood and seeing Kevin and what he's built and now sold. Still involved. Him and his wife are still greatly involved.
Are they really?
Yeah, they're still there every year. And
it's like forever ago.
It's pretty cool. So I'm going to share something with you, because you're the kind of guy that loves that. Is 4 years ago today, I said goodbye to my mom.
Oh boy.
And Mom, I just want to tell you I love you. Never far from my heart. And Dan was there for some of those struggles we had. It's amazing that we didn't lose her before, because even damn, we're still there in Idaho. It was a big challenge, right? And the reason why we moved back to California, we had no desire to move back to California. We want to stay in Idaho, but when your mom starts going down, you know, you'll do what you have to do.
Absolutely. You just took the words right out of my mouth. You do what you have to do.
Do what you have to do.
And you know, that the whole thing about do what you have to do, that company that I'm still working for now doing their websites, I've told this to you, Renny, several times over the years, but when I went to work for them back in, oh my gosh, 99, 2000, whatever it was, and I was still doing the detailing website part-time, but it wasn't bringing enough income to sustain me. So I went to work at this company, and I love it. I was having a great time. The people are wonderful. And I went by the manager's desk or office one morning, and he's got his head down on his desk, totally out of character for him. And I said, "Are you all right? What's going on?" He goes, "Dan, I just saw my son off in the military at the airport." I said, "Wow, well, you must be really proud." He goes, "I'm proud of him, but I'm really disappointed in myself." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Dan, in my son's 18 years, I've never taken him fishing. I've never gone camping with him. I've never done all these things a father is supposed to do with his son." And I said, "Well, Jeff, there's no harm or no shame in providing for your family." He goes, "I know that, but I feel like all those years were gone and I can't get them back."
Man, boy.
And I thought about what he said, and I went back into him a couple of weeks later, and I said, "Please take this in the context intended, but I need to give you my resignation, and you're the reason why." And he thought, "What in the world did I do?" I said, "It's nothing you did, it's something you said." And I told him, "I don't want to find myself in your chair when my son's 18 years old." And you know, the next many years were tough. A lot of them were really, really tough. But I never missed a single event that my son was in, you know, attended all the school meetings, all that, assistant coach on his football team, all this different stuff. And I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Yeah, I wouldn't, you know, going back to my kids and being able to attend so much of their stuff, their games, you know, and you know, with our oldest daughter, it's you know, you've met Ryan. She's a handful. She's an amazing, you know, did a career in you know, 6 years in the Marine Corps as a Marine, so she's a Marine, and she's a helicopter pilot, professional helicopter pilot now. But our biggest goal my biggest challenge was getting to her basketball games before she fouled out, because it's usually by, you know, before the halftime break, she was already thrown out of the game. She was the enforcer. She was pretty hardcore, but I always tell that to people. But you know, it's we're getting messages in as, you know, thank you for helping our country in detailing with you know, oh, look at that. No, that's cool. A lot of people saying thank you and so forth. And well, Dan, hey, it's been a this is something that we wanted to do for a long time, buddy. And we're going to do more. You know, I want to bring you in personally when you're down here. We want to get you to Big Bear and do something in person. And love to get some of the let's get the band back together, you know, and get around each other. And you know, Jim Gogan, you and I don't have hair. Jim's hair is gray. Mark Johnson looks amazing. He lost a whole bunch of weight, and he's a happy guy. And Paul's just as happy as ever. I don't know if I've ever seen Paul not happy.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think that's happened ever.
Right. So. And but hey,
and I think it's the same thing. Paul's out doing what he wants to do.
He is. He's another guy that he lived life the way he wanted to and not how others wanted him to. And you know, a lot of us think we do that, but do we really do it? And the answer is, for me, no. I mean, so much of what I do is things that I think need to be done. And I don't know, could I live a much simpler life and be happy? Absolutely. You know, there's things that, you know, I could there's noise I could drop out of my life and replace it with music, so to say.
Absolutely. Well, I'll just kind of finish with this, if it's okay. We were talking about, doing what you want to do and don't all this stuff. And I guess my parting words would be, be true to yourself. And what that company that I left abruptly back, in the early 2000s, and was doing my own thing. And then as my son got older, it wasn't, Dad, are you coming to my event? It's more like, Dad, why are you here? And, so I thought, okay, I got to get back to work. So I go back and I apply to that same company to join them again. And he said, well, we've been bought out by another company. You'll need to talk to the new owner. I said, okay. So we have a phone interview with the owner. And I'll never forget this. He goes, oh, Dan, Jeff speaks really highly of you. And, he tells me you got a young son. And I said, yes, sir. And he goes, well, if we need you to travel or work weekends or whatever, I need to know what your priority is. And I said, well, sir, this may not be the answer you want to hear, but my son's my priority. And there was like 30 seconds of dead air. I mean, well, that went well. And then he gets back on and he said, Dan, I've been in business for decades, and you're the only person that's ever told me that.
Wow.
I didn't tell him what I thought he wanted to hear. I told him the truth.
Yeah. And he told him what we all want to say. And a lot of times we don't have the bravery, or we feel so self-pressured that we just don't say it or do it. And we just go on.
Well, I'm not going to sit there and say I'll work weekends, I'll travel, because I wasn't going to.
Wow. Yeah.
I wanted to be there for my son.
Well, the takeaway from that, and what a great way to exit. The person that trains me on my horse says, always in when the horse is happy.
Absolutely. It was the same way with my dog, for crying out loud.
Right. Always in when the horse is happy. Is that, I think out of everybody I've ever met, is you set boundaries in your life. And those are pretty hard boundaries. Is that you've got some soft boundaries around you, but your well-being and the love and well-being of your son are hard boundaries. And I think we all could take away from that and set some hard boundaries. And it's not a bad thing. A lot of people say, ooh, you're going to push people away. No, you're going to be the right people in that understand why you're doing your boundaries.
You just nailed it exactly, Renny.
Is that if the right people are around you and they know that that's a boundary and it's a good boundary, they'll respect that. But if they're tainted themselves and their boundaries are all askewed and screwed up, is that they're not going to appreciate your boundaries at all. And they're going to trump them. They're going to step all over them. They're going to stomp on them. And so, again, I applaud you. So, well, hey, let's plan on getting you down here to Big Bear. Love you to come in the shop. It's, big change from the days of, Dan, when we built our house over in Idaho, Dan was there helping me move stuff. Remember going over to Haley and getting our stuff out of our house there. And, we've had a long friendship, and I sure honor that friendship, buddy.
I still got the picture of Nick as a little kid sitting in the front seat of your Hummer.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it's what a lot of great memories, and to think that these two guys from Idaho, and people. I remember going to Mobile Tech and people going, you guys, Iowa? No, not Iowa, Idaho. Yeah,
aren't they still using horses?
Exactly.
In Idaho?
Yeah,
what are you doing?
Exactly. Yeah, it's isn't that how's living in the Midwest? No. It's not. It's not Iowa.
I wish it was still that way, that people didn't know we existed, but unfortunately they do.
Yeah. Well, you just need to get a sign that just says, "Hey, Montana's a great place. Move there." All right, buddy. Well, hey, you have a glorious day, man. Good catching up with you.
Hey, guys, can I interrupt real quick?
Sure.
I want to do a little shameless plug here for us, because we got something big and important coming up. So I want to wrap up with that. But hey, so we've got our 10th annual gathering of detailing professionals coming up during SEMA week on Wednesday night, November 1st in SEMA or at SEMA. And the whole detailing industry is invited to this. You can find all the details on our social media, on our website, all that kind of stuff, and how to get tickets and all that. But the big goal this year is to actually raise money for SEMA Cares, which actually funnels that money into 3 different children's charities. And so we want the detailing industry to make a huge impact this year, and show them that we're a great industry and that we're capable of doing some really great things. So, and Renny, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
It's just a great time. Again, we're really trying to just make an impact. We want to have a great time at the party. It's always, last year, over about right at 500 people. It's now turned to where we want to really impact kids' lives and make a positive with the SEMA Cares. It's a 501c. So the contributions, 100% of our proceeds go to that effort of paying for the event. Anything that's left over, we sent everything that was left over last year. We figured out exactly what our costs were. Once we knew we broke even, and then we donated everything and threw in extra because we wouldn't be right of us not to donate also too. So we threw in a nice big chunk of money at it. And we really want to take in a couple purposes, help other people, help these kids, and then also let SEMA know a lot of times they don't recognize us as an industry. They recognize us as a few displays in the show. And we want SEMA to start standing up and recognizing that what detailing is, modern day detailing is. And Dan, you played a part in putting us on the map, and I sure appreciate it. So,
well, that's awesome. You guys are doing amazing work. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So, well, everybody, hey, thanks for tuning in. Dan, I can't wait to get you down here and see you again, buddy. We're going to try to get up and go. We try to ski Sun Valley every couple of years. This is our year to get up, and we actually went up and did Tamarack 2 or 3 years ago, and then Sun Valley too. And oh my gosh, what a great trip! And so,
well, I don't know if I'll join you on the slopes, but it'll be good to see you. Unless they let me ride my bike down, then maybe I'll go.
There you go. Well, we'll get a hold of you when we're up there, and we'll definitely hang out and have dinner and have coffee one morning.
Sounds wonderful. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right, man. You take care. Thanks a lot, guys. Take care. Right. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
See you guys.